Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Locqube Chats. I'm Lisian, and today we will talk about negotiations. On Locqube Chats, we have the chance to talk about smarter ways to sell your home, and with the help of prop tech and new technology. Today, we'll have the chance to talk with Manny Pantiga, CEO of Locqube again, and he will explain to us the biggest negotiation mistakes that usually sellers make and how to avoid them. So to dive into this process, I'd like to ask first, why do so many sellers struggle with negotiations during the home selling process, and why are they usually unprepared for this?
Hi, Lisian. Thank you for the question. Thank you for again creating the space and the time for both of us to sit together and think through these questions that are, I think, very important when it comes to the selling and the negotiating of a home. Negotiation is the point of intercept between the buyer and the seller. And think about it, when you talk about selling a home, it's a high stakes proposition. It's a high stakes transaction. It's usually one of the biggest financial transactions that a lot of people make. And it doesn't just have a transactional element to it. It also have an emotional and life component to it. Most people, buy and sell a home a few times in their lifetime. And as we've mentioned and discussed before, it comes with so many other personal elements attached to this transaction. So the reason why some sellers may struggle is because they overestimate their position, because of preparedness. Many times emotional attachment has an effect on how they engage in this negotiations. Sometimes they might not perfectly understand the buyer psychology, and sometimes it's just lack of data, lack of structure, lack of full understanding of the scope. They're just focused on the numbers. So these are some of the reasons why some people struggle with negotiations.
It's interesting when you put it that way because many sellers initially think that their home is worth more than it actually it's worth on the market, but also because they maybe do comparison with the neighbors, and there might be many factors to somebody else's home and to yours. My question is, even if there is room to negotiate, is there a downside for sellers to list high and settle lower?
It depends on the market. It depends on the situation. There are times where some particular properties may be able to fetch more on the market. That's not every sale. That's not every seller. There are times when listing high might be convenient to the seller because, again, they're setting the bar high. Other times it might be opportune for the seller to list slightly on the market and create a bidding price. But another element about negotiation is that dance that happens where we find the midpoint between both parties. I heard it said the other day that if both parties walk away feeling slightly uneasy, then it was a good transaction because everybody was able to accomplish some things and surrender and give in on some other things. It's never a perfect situation, or rarely. But to go back to overprice or to have a one size fits all approach is unwise.
And since sometimes emotions get in the way on the negotiation decision, and many homeowners, they have memories on that home. Does these emotions, do they sabotage the sale? Like, do they take it personally? Do you have any actual cases where you were in that situation where it was sabotage because of the fact that the offer was taken too personal?
It is common for a homeowner to be emotionally vested, obviously, in the negotiation of their home. And there are so many times, even for minor things, that the homeowner, because either for the components or the season in life they're in, or because of all of the transition and the stress that comes with selling a home, the homeowner might not respond well, even to reasonable requests from the other party. And this is why or where a good agent plays a tremendous role, because a good agent is going to be a buffer between what the buyer is trying to say and what the seller is receiving, and is able to navigate the seller through these kind of turbulent waters.
And does the agent help in this negotiation more than, especially that's a dilemma for a home seller. They might think it's beneficial for them to sell it on their own, to try and do it everything alone, but then they see a lot of obstacles, and then they have an agent to help them through the negotiation process. What do you think? How is that important versus is that more important for them to understand that the agent's role is indispensable versus selling on their own, or they can do it on their own sometimes?
Can a seller do it on their own? Yes, but the aim is for the optimal financial outcome for the seller. What's the best way? What's the best approach? And here's a fact: in the mind of a buyer, whenever a seller is trying to sell the property on their own, they think that they have the advantage. And in a business where perception is people's reality, especially in real estate, a buyer that is going against a seller where they feel that they have the advantage, even if the seller is well versed in negotiations, it is an additional component for the seller to overcome, is the mindset of a buyer that I got the advantage over this seller. But when the seller is well represented, the buyer approaches the situation differently. I'll give you an example. We had a seller who was an actual hostage negotiator for a police department, and he agreed that in the mind of a consumer, it is better if they're well represented. He was, and I hate to admit it, but he was a much better negotiator than I was, a much better negotiator than I was. However, he understood the value of perception, the value of having an expert leading him and leading the transaction and the talks. So also perception is a tremendous element that many people overlook when it comes to negotiation, when it comes to how this bears down on the outcome.
Can you share a story where a seller gave up too soon and then regretted it? Like an example where pressure led to a poor deal?
I could tell you many times overconfidence has led to poor decisions. Sellers often could make the assumption that because they got a good, strong first offer, that's going to necessarily be replicated. And that is a mistake. The purpose of a broker, especially, our team at Locqube, is to have high power marketing behind every property and every transaction so that we could get to that buyer quickly. So overconfidence or thinking that this is the state in which the market is in and we're going to be able to replicate this offer or improve it, overconfidence could be extremely dangerous when it comes to negotiation and when it comes to yielding the highest possible outcome in a sale of a home.
On the other side, can you share a success story where a negotiation paid off, someone who nailed it?
Negotiations begin actually a little bit before. How do we prepare the home to sell? Who's representing your home? How your home is being marketed? We talk about two elements at Locqube. We talk about presentation and representation. Presentation speaks of the type of pictures that we take, the type of videos that we take, the descriptions that we do, AI-powered, open houses, all of these things that we do, that we expose the home with technology, with innovation, and that already starts to set the bar about how is a buyer going to enter into negotiation with a Locqube represented property. The second element, and where negotiations really take shape, is in representation. Who is behind, or who is facing and speaking to the consumer on behalf of the seller? And our agents are well trained in making sure that we say and structure the negotiations in a fair manner for all, but in a way that is definitely going to benefit our sellers. And the sellers that get it are the sellers that entrust us. We speak in private about what the goal is, and then we'll go as their agents and execute. And they trust us to do it on their behalf, rather than interjecting. For example, a big mistake that sellers make is to try to show the home to buyers and try to highlight the features about the home that they love, and that is actually setting that seller back rather than helping in their process. I didn't answer. I think I answered in the negative, but these are things that we see that harm the seller in negotiation.
Let's finally talk about Locqube. Locqube is a platform that helps sellers to list their home online. I know that um, you have the agent support there, and the whole process is easier for them, and also it cuts a lot of costs for them, and they can sell a little bit higher and with less commission. But how does that translates into the transaction in the actual negotiation process? Does that actually help, and how?
Well, the other day somebody was asking us, who is Locqube? What is Locqube about? And Locqube is a movement. More than a technology company, more than a brokerage. It's a movement to protect homeowners' equity, and we do it in three main ways. Number one, we look to sell the property for as much money as it is possible because we're here to protect the homeowner's equity. Number two, we lower our commission rate to 1.99% for most properties. And then number three, we enter the negotiation with the buyer and the buyer's agent to make sure that the terms of any additional fees are very, very convenient to the seller. What happens when the fees are significantly lower for the homeowner? It takes a lot of the pressure of the negotiation out, because the homeowner is no longer entering the negotiation thinking, I have this big commission bill that they have to pay at the closing table. They enter seeking to bring a transaction to a close rather than mitigating their loss. That is a big difference that we see, a big change in dynamics for our clients in the negotiations.
Thank you, Manny. Thank you for breaking down the negotiation game and basically explaining that an option like Locqube can help them sell for a higher price and negotiate even better, since they have more leverage on their equity and on the overall value of their home. So I suggest everyone to take a look at locqube.com and start with a home value estimate and see how their property can look like on the platform, and also leverage the AI tool and the AI agents and how that will help on the home selling process. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch up on the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.